Did you start taking it to another level after that?
Yeah. So when I got out of rehab that last time, COVID was still a thing, right? And so I ended up just getting a job at a local LA fitness. And, we all had to wear masks and stuff because they had just reopened gyms, but there was like super strict stipulations on it. So like, I remember I had to go tell somebody who was like sprinting on the treadmill and their mask was like below, like it was on, but it was just below their nose. This dickhead manager dude was like breathing down my neck to go tell her she had to put it back up here. Anyway, when I went to LA, I started working a lot and I didn't like that, but it kind of reignited my love for fitness, but I was just more of a salesperson there.
This is Rock Bottom with Ryan. No sugarcoating, no filters. The pain, the chaos, the truth. No bullshit. Just recovery.
Hey everyone, I just want to say that this episode is brought to you by Sober Strong Apparel, our proud sponsor. It is not just lifestyle wear, it's battle gear. Heavyweight tees, hoodies, and gear for the ones who draw a hard line. Clean, sober, no compromise. We rep sobriety like a badge of honor, and every piece you throw on says you're a part of the crew that doesn't back down. And every order fuels 10% to treatment facilities, which I think is amazing because a lot of us who are in recovery and a lot of us who are sober now went to treatment facilities, including myself. So I just love that 10% goes to that cause. And the clothing is incredible. Incredibly thick, packaged well, incredible material. I mean, it's like the softest clothes I've ever seen. And so not only does it look good, feel good, but it's for a good cause. And I really respect and appreciate what this company represents. And it doesn't have to be just for people who are in recovery to rock the brand. I think anybody who supports the sobriety lifestyle, the recovery community, who has loved ones in recovery, I think it's really important to support the brand, And at checkout on SoberStrongApparel.com, enter Rock Bottom, all capital, Rock Bottom, at checkout for an additional 10% off. I love this brand, love to rep it every day. It's comfortable, feels good to wear it, looks good. I mean, it's amazing. So I just love what this company represents. And thank you so much for watching this episode. Have an amazing day and a happy holidays. All right. Welcome to another episode of Rock Bottom with Ryan. I'm here with my guest here, Harrison, today. Harrison, how you doing?
I'm doing well, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. It's a good Monday morning. Christmas coming up. I'm excited. Not first sober Christmas, but first one. I had a sober Christmas last year, but I just gotten out of treatment, so it was like really not as exciting. But
Right.
So yeah, happy sober Christmas to everybody. And so this is a recovery podcast, and a lot of times I like to have people kind of share their stories, a little bit about your background, your childhood, kind of how you grew up, and then what led to your drinking and drug use, or drinking and or drug use, and then kind of leading into where you're at today. So I'd start with what's your sober date?
Yeah, sober date is November 18th, 2020.
Okay, cool. So you got a little over 5 years then.
Yep.
Awesome. Congratulations. What was your drink or drug of choice?
I was heroin.
Heroin. So, okay. So was heroin the worst, or was that just part of it, or did you have any other, that was mainly what you were?
Yeah, I mean, that was by far the worst. I mean, I don't know if it can get much worse than that. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm curious because I've had a lot of people on the show now, and I haven't had anybody who was strictly heroin. A lot of it's been a lot of alcohol, a lot of cocaine and stuff like that. So this will be, might have a lot of questions for you. So,
yeah,
because I am not educated on what heroin is like. A little bit about fentanyl, but not heroin. So,
got it.
So yeah, could you kind of take me back into like maybe what your childhood was like, how you grew up, and then kind of things leading up to using heroin the first time?
Yeah, man, absolutely. So I was raised in a good home. I still have a good relationship with my parents today. I'm very grateful for that. I was raised Christian. We always had everything that we needed. We were never in need of anything that we couldn't have. I was homeschooled for 10 years. And then when I got into high school, I really wanted to have more of a social life, really wanted to kind of get out there. So I just got dropped into high school, or, as a sophomore. And that was quite a culture shock. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Homeschool is a public school. Yeah.
Yeah. All of a sudden there was girls, parties, all the stuff. So I ended up doing that. And I went from being a very good kid to being pretty much a punk ass pretty quick,
Really?
started
Kind of
off with a really
rebellious.
high GPA and dropped down to like a 1.9 within like a semester or two. So my point is, it was a quick transition, and I just started messing around with marijuana, and at the beginning, it was like I smoked marijuana one time and I thought, oh my God, this is what I've been looking for. This is what I've been waiting for. This is what I've been wanting in life. It gave me peace in my mind. From there, I just started smoking every day, and I was a functional stoner. So I was doing, I was working out, 4, 5, 6 times a week at high school, and just, I'd bring food with me when I'd go smoke weed with my friends. I'd bring like peanut butter and a knife and jelly and just make sandwiches so I wouldn't get hungry and lose my gains.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty silly, right?
Yeah. No, that's cool.
And, so it just kind of escalated from there. I just kept doing more drugs, partying. And for a while, it was fun. I still look back at the years from 16 to 20-ish as some of the best years of my life. But then when I started to transition into the heavier stuff around 22 years old, that's when things kind of got dark. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what we try to say sometimes when I'm hearing about everybody. A lot of the stories on my show are tend to be dark, but I try to remind us, not we did it. We had fun at one point doing some of these things. I'll admit,
Oh, yeah.
sometimes it wasn't all bad, but
Yeah.
I mean, I know the outcome in the aftermath and like the rock bottoms were obviously not, were obviously the dark points, but I'm sure somewhere in there for all of us addicts, it wasn't always horrible. We were with friends. We had some experiences, but still, it always leads to our demise. It seems like. So,
Yeah.
So how did marijuana graduate into heroin? Like, what was the first time using heroin? Like,
Yeah, man. Great question. And, it's funny because I was never one of those people who thought marijuana was a gateway drug. I'd say it has more to do with me and the way that I am than it does with marijuana or heroin. It was just, I always needed something more. I was always looking for the next best high, the next best thing that would make me feel better. And, particularly with heroin, it wasn't like I just stumbled upon it. A friend and I were trying to buy a Percocet. I remember like a long time ago, we were trying to purchase Percocet and the dude ripped us off. Right. And so we were like kind of disappointed, and my friend was like, hey, just saying, heroin's kind of the same thing. So why won't we just do that? I can get that right now. And then we argued for about 40 minutes and then I let him convince me, right? I had a part in it for a long time. I blamed him, but I had a part in it. He talked me into it. We did it. So yeah.
What was it? What was it like? What was the feeling exactly?
Actually, it was terrible at first. It made me sick, super sick, man. I mean, like, not to be too graphic, but I would take a hit and like almost instantly throw up. It tastes like bleach with Lay's potato chips or something. You know what I mean? It was just disgusting.
How did you use it? Did you smoke it or inject
Yep,
it?
you just smoke it off of, sounds terrible saying it. You smoke it off of foil. So,
Okay. Is that like freebasing or something?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So I don't know if I've ever done that, but so like it gives you, does it like take away all your worries, all your pain? Just,
it just, I try to explain this to people. It's like when you drink and you take like 3 or 4 shots and you just kind of feel relaxed. You're not drunk. You're just kind of relaxed.
yeah.
That's what it's like, only a little bit stronger, right? It's not like this super great feeling. It's more so just a relaxing feeling that you want to have all the time.
Were
It
you,
was never super strong to me,
were you like hooked right off the bat, or were you kind of, was it gradual as far as,
Yeah.
like, were you taking like in between, were there a lot of times in between using like, oh, this is just a recreational thing for fun every now and again, or did it go straight into
Yeah.
like full blown?
So for me, it was like, I tried it a few times and I didn't like it. I didn't like the way it made me feel. It made me too sick. And then, I just kept kind of once a month, just messing around with it. Sorry, I have some mild head cold. You'll have to forgive me.
No worries. There's something going around right now.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay.
But I didn't really like it, but I was heavily smoking marijuana. So then I actually discovered that I could make my marijuana high very intense if I smoked heroin too. And it would actually conserve my heroin. So I actually became addicted, quote unquote, in the beginning to both of them at the same time. And that made my marijuana high like 10 out of 10. It just skyrocketed. Like I could just, sounds terrible, but I would smoke heroin, smoke marijuana, and then be just in a cloud. Does that make
So,
sense?
how old were you at this point, do you think?
About 24,
Okay.
23, 24.
Were you primarily using with groups of people or with a friend, or were you doing a lot of this alone?
Well, in the beginning, me and that friend that I tried, so he was like my best friend all through high school, teen years and everything. He's now sober today as well, but in the beginning, we were very close and we trusted each other a lot, and we didn't think heroin was a big deal, as stupid as that may sound. So we would do it a lot together in the beginning, but then after about a year, heroin's kind of a loner drug, man. Like I don't want to hang out with people who do heroin.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was really just me,
Yeah. Okay. Where are you from, by the way?
Washington State.
Same here originally. What part of Washington?
Well, I grew up in Buckley, but now I live in Tacoma. What
Oh,
about
okay.
you?
I grew up in the Seattle area, so I went to high school over in the Bellevue area, and yeah, and then went over to Pullman for Washington State for college and stuff. So,
Oh, that's awesome, dude.
yeah,
So
but right
that's
now
where
I live in North Idaho, so
nice. Good move, dude. Idaho is like Washington on steroids.
pretty much. Yeah, no, I miss Seattle sometimes. I miss some parts of it, but I mean, I could also go over there at any time and know about 10 drug dealers and stuff. So, I mean, it's probably not good for me either.
Super funny you say that. That's where I would go to get high.
Yeah, no, I know. It's yeah. I mean, whenever I'd go over there and visit, the second I'd be in town, I'd be like on my phone and be like, all right, got a bag of cocaine waiting for me right here. Yeah, so yeah, I don't go back as often now that I'm sober, but I still have some good friends over there that I keep in touch with. But yeah, but but
That's
yeah,
awesome.
so do you think like when you look back at when you started using and like say before it became like a problem, like do you think you were trying to like numb anything that you were trying to hide? Like, were you suffering from depression, anxiety? Like, you said you had a good childhood with your parents and everything, but was there something going on that you can think of now?
Yeah, for sure. I was going through some weird stuff when I was a homeschool kid, just from like needing kind of having like a validation wound, feeling like I needed to be noticed more than I was. And so I would find like ways to get validation, like sounds kind of weird, but like even with things like social media when I was a kid, like I was like addicted to MySpace, because I felt like that was my way to connect with the real world. And so, it sounds silly, but at the time, I was like a 13-year-old kid. I didn't know what was happening. And it did really help when I smoked marijuana. It just calmed all of the voices in my head, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah,
you
no, I
know,
get it. I didn't really have the same. I didn't wasn't homeschooled, but I was in like private schools for a good part of my elementary and middle school, and then I moved over with my dad in Bellevue for eighth grade through high school. And I remember going into a public school and stuff. It was just so much different than being at this little parochial private school with uniforms and a bunch of little rich kids and stuff. And I never really fit in very well there. So when I got into public school, I kind of like let loose and I started smoking pot and stuff like that and making friends of all different cultures and backgrounds. So I kind of like had a similar effect, maybe not the same as homeschool, but it was kind of like releasing somebody to the wild kind of. So
yeah, that's
yeah.
exactly how it was.
So yeah. So I did so like how did you say so that you just went through high school? You ended up graduating fine? Did you go to college or anything? Or
Yeah, so I graduated high school, almost barely actually, but I did. And then I actually moved to Kansas City. It sounds kind of strange, but I moved to Kansas City for a church. I had a very powerful experience at this church around 16 years old, and I ended up going to kind of a college associated with the church for a little bit, just to get kind of a better idea of, the Bible and whatnot, but when I moved there, I had no plan for recovery. For me, I'll just speak for myself, just going to church isn't going to keep me sober. I need more. I need to do more than that. So when I went to church, I was good for about 3 months. And then, some of the stuff inside my head started coming back to the surface. I started getting uncomfortable. I started seeking ways of numbing that, and I was right back in the game and going to church now. Right.
Okay.
So I did that for a little. And then when I moved back home, I kind of cleaned up, quote unquote, a little bit because I really wanted to be a personal trainer. And so I actually did go through the National Academy of Sports Medicine for personal training. And that was great. And then I started working as a trainer, and I was just kind of like backpedal just to being a stoner trainer.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, it does. So you were throughout this entire time, even in the midst of your addiction, were you still pretty committed to fitness and all that?
Yeah, I would say all the way up until I tried heroin, right? Like even if I was messing with pills or, smoking weed every day, I was determined I loved working out, and I always have.
Yeah, no, it's fun. I love doing it myself. I like running every day, especially. And I got back into heavy weightlifting recently as of a month ago. I finally starting to build up again. So it's nice, but
Nice.
it's great in sobriety, it's like a high within itself.
Oh, yeah.
So what got you into fitness in the first place then? Like, would that start in high school and then it just
Great
evolved?
question, man. So when I was a kid, my mom put me in Taekwondo, which is just kind of like a kid martial art, when I was 6 years old. I did that for about 9.5 years, got my black belt, whatever. And then I remember, short story for you, I went over to Eastern Washington at one of my friend's house to actually pick cherries for the summer for like a, side job. I was like 15 years old. And while I was over there one morning, I got picked up by a bunch of dudes on the wrestling team, and we went and lifted weights. And that was like the first time I ever did it. And I remember just being like, this is the shit. Like, I
Wow.
love this. And so that day changed my life. Ever since then, I went home, I quit Taekwondo, and I just started lifting weights. And I've literally done it off and on ever since then.
Awesome. So that's really cool. So yeah, I got really into weightlifting. I think I was really scrawny in high school, and then I think my dad would make comments. He's like, piano string arms or something like that. I was a big soccer player and stuff. I was fit. I thought I looked fit, but as soon as I got to college, I started discovered creatine and started lifting weights, and I was like, oh wow, I'm actually gaining muscle, and I just got into it ever since. So yeah,
Nice, dude. Yeah.
it's a very healthy addiction for sure. So yeah.
Yeah.
So when did like your heroin use evolve into the point where you're kind of like, I need to stop? Like, did you have a bunch of times where like you quit, got sober, relapsed, or how'd that whole process of quitting go?
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah. I had a lot of those. For me, when I first got into it, I was good, quote unquote. You know what I mean? I'm like, this isn't a big deal. I'm still going to work as a personal trainer. I'm still going to do fun things. It's just something that I like to do on the side that's kind of fun, right? It took about a whole year from the very first time that I did it to, a year later. Now I'm starting to go to Seattle like every day, and I was making the drive from Buckley to Seattle, man. And that's like a crazy drive to be doing every day, sometimes multiple times a day.
Yeah. How far is that?
I don't know in distance, but I know that it takes about an hour and 10 minutes with no traffic one way.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
So if there's traffic, you're fucked. So, I mean, for me, it was like, it started out not so bad. Then I got to a year. When I got to a year, I was going out there every day. And then slowly I started to kind of disappear from my training job. I had like one or two clients, and I got fired from the gym. They were like, bro, you're not doing anything. I was like, I didn't really care. I was starting to really get in the grips of heroin. And by this time, marijuana was starting to slowly leave the picture. And it was just becoming heroin. Alcohol, I didn't care about alcohol. It was just starting to kind of hone in, And then from there, I mean, I lost my training job, and I went to rehab once in 2017. That didn't work. I didn't want to be there. I went again in 2018. Kind of wanted to make a change, but didn't really care. And all this time when I'm not in rehab, things are getting worse. Trying to get jobs and just getting fired, or like going to temp agencies and getting fired. Because, I mean, there's no way to be a good worker when you're addicted to heroin. There's no way.
Yeah.
And so then I went a third time to this place called Adult and Teen Challenge in Spokane. That was a year-long Christian rehab, right? So it was pretty intense. It was a lot different than the others. And while I was there, COVID hit. And so all of a sudden, we're in like a normal rehab to now we're like on this weird lockdown with like a bunch of other dudes. And it was just a weird time, man. And, it's just, there's no women at this rehab and we're just stuck on this little island, So that was weird. And then I got out of that and refused to work a program. I made it to like 16 months sober, and I was just crazy in my head. I didn't go through the steps. I didn't go to meetings, and I ended up relapsing. And the fourth time I went to rehab, that was when I was like, okay, can't do this anymore. I have nowhere to go, no money. Like, if there was a way for me to use drugs and have a normal life, I probably would, but there just isn't for me.
Yeah, no, for most people.
So I always just lose everything. So I was tired of that. I was tired of that consequence. And I finally came to the conclusion there was no way that I could do it. So I went to rehab one last time. I applied myself as soon as I got out, got a sponsor, worked the steps. And, I love AA. AA has changed my life. So that's how I got here today.
Okay, awesome. How old were you so that was five years ago in about a month?
Yeah, so like 27.
Okay, awesome. Cool. So it sounds like you're in rehab. Did you kind of come up with a plan as far as not just going to AA, but how you were going to start getting into, I see on your Instagram all about fitness and all that. Did you start taking it to another level after that?
Yeah. So when I got out of rehab that last time, COVID was still a thing, right? And so I ended up just getting a job at a local LA fitness. And, we all had to wear masks and stuff because they had just reopened gyms, but there was like super strict stipulations on it. So like, I remember I had to go tell somebody who was like sprinting on the treadmill and their mask was like below, like it was on, but it was just below their nose. This dickhead manager dude was like breathing down my neck to go tell her she had to put it back up here. Anyway, when I went to LA, I started working a lot and I didn't like that, but it kind of reignited my love for fitness, but I was just more of a salesperson there. Ended up leveraging that job to get a different job at a gym called Northwest Fitness and worked there as a manager, assistant manager for a while. And I really didn't like managing stuff. It was kind of killing my love for fitness. So anyway, November 2020, I switched back to being a trainer at Northwest Fitness, and I was a trainer there ever since November. Yeah, right around November 2020. And then I started to, November 2021. And then I started to transition back into training.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So how did you feel like your relationships were with like your family back when you were in the midst of your addiction, family and friends? And then how did that change when you got sober?
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, that's a rough one. So, I mean, I was a piece of shit, you know what I mean? Like when people are using, I'll speak for myself, when I was using, I was a liar. I was dishonest. I wanted to still be there for people. I wanted to still be friends with people, but I had to have my drug first, that always came first. So when it came to my family, I was doing things I definitely shouldn't have been, and it wasn't, they were always supporting me, which I'm super grateful for, but they had to kind of support me from a distance. You know what I mean? And then, when I went through the steps in AA, I was able to amend some of those situations. And now we're super close. I'm going there. I just actually stayed up late ordering gifts on Amazon last minute.
Awesome.
For my family, I had to go to the ones that'll get here before Christmas. It's like all
Yeah, another feeling, the last minute stuff, but Amazon comes through for that stuff. So
yeah,
especially in the Seattle area.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's good. So your relationships got better. How about like significant others and stuff like that? Did you have relationships while you were in the middle of your use with say somebody that was using with you, or did you cover it up really well in your relationships, or how'd that work?
Yeah, well, for me, there was no covering up, nothing. I mean, you could just see me and know, but I didn't date, in the very beginning in 2015, I had a girlfriend, but that was very early on. As far as when I was actually in the addiction, I wasn't dating nobody, dude. I was in
Yeah.
no shape. I don't understand how people even do that, to be honest.
Unless the person's using with you and you're just,
Yeah.
codependent users. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get
But
it.
she's gonna
So
steal your shit as soon as you turn around.
exactly. That's pretty much how it goes. Yep. I know. I was just when I had relationships that were like cocaine based, relationships or drinking based relationships, it was always kind of like, oh, you're snorting all my stuff, but you have your own bag too. That's really nice to know. It's like that's cool. But yeah, no, I just no, nothing good comes from relationships where you're using anyways. So it's almost best that you're doing it on your own and not bringing somebody down with you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
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 So yeah, so like as you gradually like can you describe like the last time you used and what was going through your head?
But yeah. Before I went into treatment this last time, it was like this recurring thing where like I would text my dealer, and he was, dealers aren't the most upright citizens in the world, right? So
Not always fun.
I mean, you never knew what you'd get. He might answer right away. He might answer in 4 days. He might never answer, right? So, I remember just honestly just basing my whole world around getting a text back from my dealer. But I knew that on some level he would normally always eventually come through, and the stuff that he had was normally always pretty good compared to other people. So I would kind of just go to this one dude, and he would just take forever. But I remember, getting texts from him and then starting that long drive. And it was like a whole process. It was like once I started the drive and started getting closer to Seattle, it's like the dopamine would start hitting. I'd get that anticipation, and then I would go get the drug, and I'd wait, I would wait forever first, which was all kind of part of the game, as I'm sure maybe you've had a similar experience. And then I would get the drug, and then I'd go smoke a little bit. And every time toward the end, even in the middle, but toward the very end, it was just making me feel normal. And that was
Yeah.
where it got me. Like, this is not right.
Yeah, when you're just
Not
doing
right.
it to kind of chase the high, but in the end you're just not even feeling the high anymore.
Yeah.
It's when you know your
That's what
brain can't really handle much more.
Yeah, that's what killed it for me. And so, but then that's the messed up part about addiction. The very next day when you run out, you want to go get it again.
Yeah, I know. And I had the same kind of effect on alcohol. Like every time I would hit my rock bottoms, which were so many of them. I mean, I wish I quit like, you know, 15 years ago if I could, but every time I'd go on like a bad bender, and it got to the point where I'm drinking so much only to get rid of the withdrawal symptoms, but I'm not feeling anything anymore. I'm not enjoying it. I'm just trying to get rid of the shakes. And it's hard enough drinking a bottle when you're shaking and you can't
Yeah,
function. And then finally those go away and you're like, okay, I'm just gonna go to bed. And then you wake up and it's the same thing all over again. So
right.
it's just exhausting trying to like maintain that and chase that high. And it's like, yeah. So I myself, I think I tried heroin one time. I think back and I was on a trip in San Francisco and I tried it. I didn't feel anything. I don't even know if I did it right or whatever. I think I just smoked it somehow, and I don't remember if it was off foil or what. But I just remember I felt kind of like relaxed, but I didn't like it wasn't enough for me to go back and try it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it. And I've never, I took a Percocet one time and it made me throw up, so I never tried a painkiller ever again. So I don't know why that genre of drugs never got me, but I mean, if it would have, I probably wouldn't be alive right now because of my addictive personality.
Sure, sure.
Yeah. But so yeah, so like what was like the hardest part, like say when you went into treatment, what were some of the difficult things that like your counselors and everybody had you address that were like tough to approach?
Oh yeah. Well, the first thing right off the bat was not being able to drink or use anything again. That pissed me off because I really wanted to be able to, enjoy marijuana casually or, have a drink on the weekend because most of my friends who were not addicts, what I'm trying to say is most of my friends were not addicts or alcoholics. I didn't hang out with a lot of addicts or alcoholics at that time. So I had this idea of like reinventing myself and just coming back as somebody who casually drank, like who I used to be when I was 20, 21. But there ain't no way in hell I would be able to do that now.
But you never
Oh,
had like an issue with alcohol though. But
oh
you
no, for sure. I
you did.
definitely do. I did. And I
Yeah.
definitely did. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So alcohol, was it ever something that you were reliant on as well?
No, it was just there. You know
It
what
was
I
just
mean?
there.
It was just
Yeah.
there. And if I did drink it, I'd drink way too fast.
Oh, okay. And
You
just like
know?
no stopping point and never cut yourself
Yeah.
off kind of thing. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That
If I couldn't find heroin, I'd drink for the night or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. So you always were trying to kind of numb yourself in some way.
But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have like, anxious thoughts, depression, stuff like that, or any of those?
I definitely had anxious thoughts, but I wasn't depressed. I just didn't really know what was going on with
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Uh, and now being in recovery, it's I still have the anxious thoughts and I still have, depressive kind of states that I get into, but the tools that I get from AA and the steps help me to stay sober through it, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
So I'm able to stay sober through it and therefore, help someone else who might be struggling with similar things. But it's not fun all the time, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah. No, not at all. No. I mean, I remember when I first went into treatment, one of the first things they asked me to do was I talked to my counselor, introduced myself. I'm like, hey, he's like, you're probably going to be here for 60 days, but if all goes well, maybe you can cut out, leave a little sooner. I'm like, okay, well, I'm committed this time because I really want to quit. Even though the first week I was trying to line up Ubers to come pick me up in the middle of nowhere and stuff. And I was trying to get out of there and I was like, how can I skip this and get sober on my own? But then the longer I was there, the more I started realizing the stuff they're having me do is actually helping. Like the first thing they asked was write a letter to your sister who passed away. My sister passed away of a fentanyl overdose. So I was like, I guess I haven't really processed that yet. And that happened, about 5 years ago. And I was just kind of like, okay, well, I finally have to process that. So I wrote her a long letter and I read it to a group of strangers that, were in the same position as me. And I started to feel just a little bit better that I finally got some of my emotions out a little bit.
Yeah.
So there were some difficult things that you have to do in treatment where you're just kind of like, I don't think I wanted this, but I needed this.
Yeah, dude. I'm sorry to hear that.
No, it's something I'm still processing, but it's a tough deal. But that's why I spread fentanyl awareness, even though I know not a lot about fentanyl itself, but it's definitely killing people every day. So it's frightening.
Uh,
Did you ever try fentanyl at all in your?
I got out of the game before that came in.
Yeah, that's good.
Just from what I hear, not that I care, but from what I hear now is you can't even really get heroin anymore. It's just more fentanyl everywhere.
Yeah. Did you? I've heard that heroin withdrawal is like incredibly painful and annoying and like really traumatic situation. Like, what was it like for you going through those, or did you ever make sure you didn't go through those?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, for me, the withdrawals were annoying, but they weren't terrible, right? So, for me, withdrawals were more like I didn't feel it was like a mild head cold. But I guess what withdrawals did for me more was just really make me fiend super hard for the drug, but not to, get these symptoms to go away. I just wanted to get high, right?
Yeah,
I was lucky in that way. I never experienced super gnarly withdrawals. Um, they were just I was just very unmotivated person if I didn't have heroin with
I know.
anything.
Whenever I think about withdrawals, I just think of like that movie, The Basketball Diaries with Leonardo DiCaprio. I don't know if but he like it's a movie he did when he was younger, but he was a heroin addict and a basketball player, and he got sexually assaulted by his coach, and he was a heroin addict, and he goes through like these crazy withdrawals while this mentor he has is trying to get him sober, and it's like he's just locked up and like sweating and just suffering, and it's like until he gets his fix, and he's begging for his fix. So I wasn't sure if you had ever been through something like that.
No, yeah, it didn't look like that for me, fortunately.
Fortunately. Did you
Yeah.
ever feel like you came close to overdosing? Did you ever like get to that kind of scare?
Yeah, for sure. When I would mix heroin and marijuana, it was too much.
Yeah.
I remember my heart would be racing and I would just jump into the shower thinking
Oh,
that
okay.
would save me. And,
Wow.
I would shower and then I'd like think I felt better, but yeah, there were a few times, and it was always just with the heart rate. I would just get this weird feeling,
Yeah,
like, man, I've smoked too much this time, or luckily I never transitioned to IV use,
that's
so
good.
I was able to stay out of that game, thank God.
Yeah, which I guess is probably a more likely to help you overdose if you do IVs. Yeah, so I've never touched a needle in my life either, thank God. Because I mean, I'm covered in tattoos, but I'm frightened of needles, so it doesn't work out. But yeah. So like, what's like going into say AA to get off of things like heroin and stuff? Like, what do you get out of that group? Like, what's the primary reason that you feel like that's helped you be successful?
God, man, I could talk forever about this. I'll just speak from my experience. I mean, it's they have in AA, they have what's called the big book. So it's literally just a big blue book, and
Oh yeah, I'm
talks.
a dedicated member. I go every day. I love it.
Oh, so
Yeah,
okay. I'm
yeah,
saying I'm
yeah.
sorry, I didn't know.
That's all good.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, going through the steps changes you, right? And admittedly, I did it about 3 years ago. I think I'm about to go through them again, because that's kind of a thing. But I mean, steps 1, 2, and 3 were easy, right? I knew I was powerless. I already had a background of being a Christian. Jesus is my higher power, right? I don't push it on people, but just for me. And, I had that background. And once you get into step 4, you start writing down all the stuff that was still in here. You know what I'm saying? And,
Hmm.
5, 6, and 7, admitting it to someone else and then turning it over to God. That process is hard. Like, I have mad respect for anybody who actually goes through the steps thoroughly. Like, it's kind of like a job when you're doing it,
It is. It's a
like
full-time job.
it's hard.
Yeah.
And then, with 8 and 9, it's like making that amends list and then doing it. That was by far the gnarliest part of the whole thing, calling people that I wronged, calling, organizations that I wronged, or whatever, and trying to make amends. And I did do my best to do it thoroughly. That, 1 to 9, man, that's hard. That's hard work.
Yeah.
Like, normies don't have life easy. I'm not saying that, but they don't, they don't understand what what it's like. Like, it's
Yeah.
hard to do.
Yeah.
And so, and then doing 10 and 11, doing that inventory at night, which admittedly I have not done in a really long time.
Yeah.
But 11, I try to do daily, prayer and meditation, just all those steps together. It's just what the book talks about of the obsession to use will be lifted. And that's what happened. I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of like somebody in a meeting one time said that I get results that I can't deny by methods that I can't explain. You know what I'm
I love
saying?
that. That is cool.
Yeah. I didn't say it. Someone else in a meeting did. So that stuck with me.
Yeah. No, I understand. Um, so can you kind of take me back just a little bit, describe like what was the 24-hour period like at your worst, and then compare it to what your 24-hour periods are like now that you're healthy and sober?
Yeah, yeah, man. So probably at the worst would be right before I last got sober, right? I mean, well, it wasn't right before, but it was before I went to that third rehab at Teen Challenge. I was, living at my parents' house that they were selling. So I was like, my parents had moved out of the home. I had nowhere to go. And so they were like, all right, you can come just stay at our house while we're selling it. And the messed up part about it is you're so selfish, or I was so selfish, that I didn't think about what it looked like from their perspective. Like, they literally have this son that they love who is just doing heroin in the home they're selling, and they don't know what to do with me,
Yeah.
and I would literally just lay down all day and just not do anything until I figured out a way to get money. And then when I figured out a way to get money, whether it was pawning something or, whatever, and then going to the pawn shop. So sketch.
Yeah.
Like, they had to have known I was on drugs.
Yeah. I'm sure it's
And
pretty
then,
common in pawn shops.
yeah, yeah. And then, pawning something and getting money, and you get, texting my dealer, it was just about driving back and forth to Seattle and then just laying around once I got my drug. That was all I did. Just lay around and be a
And it's
lazy
kind of
guy.
like going through the steps as a full-time job. Maintaining an addiction is a full-time job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, just like trying to keep myself leveled when I was at my worst in drinking was literally like, I'm just drinking to survive at this point, so I don't die of withdrawals. And then like cocaine use was a whole different subject. That was, not that wasn't a problem in the last like 6, 7 years, but it definitely was, a part of the problem. It was a full time job. I always had a dealer within arm's reach all the time, so I never had to drive that far.
Yeah.
But yeah, so plus selling it myself, that obviously made it pretty convenient.
Right, right, right.
But yeah, so 24-hour period. So you would pawn things. You said sometimes you'd be dishonest somehow. Like, would you steal things and stuff like that? Or yeah, so you had to probably make a lot of amends later on, I assume.
For sure. It did.
Yeah, no, that's tough. So now that say, how far after getting out of treatment? How many days were you in treatment?
This last time I was
Yeah.
there for 30 days.
Okay,
Yep.
and then
28 or
how?
30, something like that.
So when you came out, you were pretty determined, and what was you just immediately get into a healthy routine and you started going to AA right after that?
Yeah, so I think it was kind of a God thing. What Before I relapsed that last time, like after the third time in treatment, but before the fourth, I was actually visiting a friend in an Oxford house, and I met this dude uh, who became my sponsor later. And I don't know what it was. I couldn't put my finger on it, but when I talked to this dude, he just kind of gave me some straight talk because I was telling him how I didn't think meetings were for me. This was before I got sober, or before I relapsed and I was still sober, but just living in my head. And he was, I told him meetings aren't for me, blah, blah, blah. And then he kind of just told me some hard truth, like, hey, man, that's not the way. You're not going to make it like that.
Yeah.
And, he was a Christian too. And you know, we had a similar background, and something about what he said just kind of stuck with me. So I knew when I went to rehab that fourth time that I was going to pick him as my sponsor right when I got out. And I just was tired of the consequences of using. It's not like an addict doesn't want to stop getting high, but the consequences of using were just so horrible. They had gotten so horrible that I was like, okay, I just can't keep going this way. But I was
Yeah.
like defeated. I was done.
Yeah. Understandable. Okay. So what what is a 24-hour period like now then? Like just
Yeah.
so you wake up in the morning and how do you go about your day?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, man, it's so different, right? So I wake up and I would be lying if I said I pray and meditate every day. I don't, but I do try to do it often, right? Life gets crazy, but I do try to, make that a priority. So like I'll wake up and I'll have, my breakfast, and then normally I'll pray, meditate, do some kind of reading. And then I just get right into my work day, right? I work for myself now. I have my own business helping people in recovery get healthy and restore their bodies, because there's a big need for that, man. That's why I kind of niche down to people in recovery, because I know so many people in recovery who get all this stuff back, but their health just continues to dive down. And so, whether I'm making content, talking to people, doing calls to talk about my program, or just coaching my clients, that's what I spend the majority of my time doing. And then, I focus on my own goals. Like right after this, I'm probably going to take a break and do my own meal prepping because I didn't do it yesterday, just so I have all my food for the week. AA meetings, I have lots of friends in AA. All my friends are basically sober and in the program. So that's kind of what life looks like today.
That's
Church on
awesome.
Sunday when I feel like it.
That's awesome. No, I like it. So you think spirituality sounds like it has played a big role in your recovery?
For sure. Just with the background that I have, and I'm not trying to be preachy. It's just I had some pretty powerful experiences that kind of made me shape the beliefs I have today.
That's good. Yeah. I mean, I'll admit I had a little, I don't know, I wouldn't say resentment or animosity towards my religious side or towards God for a long time, because I used to always look at it like, all this bad stuff happened to me. All this, like, I had this crappy childhood, this and this and that. I mean, it wasn't all bad, but like, that's the thing. I always focused on the negative. So I was like, when I got into, say, the program and like went to treatment and was going to dedicate myself to AA and stuff, I was like, I'm just going to avoid the whole spirituality part because
Uh,
it says God like 4 times in the 12 steps, you know. I'm like, I don't want anything to do with that. But I feel like I did have some kind of spiritual awakening. I mean, like when I was in the hospital, my last and final time because of drinking and withdrawals, I, had this lady come in who happened to be a nun at the private school I was at in elementary school. And she came in and she usually reads her rights to people that are passing away. And she saw my name on a computer and she's like, okay, I recognize that name, Ryan, in my last name or whatever. And she recognized it from 30 years prior and went and visited me and prayed for me every day I was in the hospital until I went to treatment. And I was like, and I was telling myself before she started visiting me every day, I was telling myself, I'm going to get out of the hospital and I'm going to quit on my own, you know. But the more she kept praying for me, the more I came to my senses. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to do it different this time. You know, what's 45 days when I've wasted this many years using, you know? So I'm just like, all right, I'll do this. And then, so I feel like that was an awakening within itself. And then something happened in treatment where I just felt after a week of being there, I just like all of a sudden just felt all of my worries go away. And I felt like that right there was a spiritual awakening. And then I go into the AA program and I walk in and there's a bunch of people. I walk into the room and there's people laughing and shaking hands. I'm like, these are all people that were like miserable at one point and they're happy. Like, what the heck is this about? So I
yeah.
was just like, I got to do this. So, I mean, I felt like it all added up and it really started making me think of, maybe I have a higher power. And since then, I'm like, higher power this, higher power that.
Yeah.
I'm all
That's
about it
awesome,
now.
man.
I feel like spiritual awakenings happen to a lot of us. We just have to look at certain things. You know, your higher power, like I've heard from my co-host who comes on every now and again, she's like, your higher power can be anything. It can be a rock. It can be a person. It can be anything in your head. Like it just can be anything. So
Right.
it's pretty cool how that works. But so one of my final questions would be, so have you had any moments of like weakness? Like what are some warning signs you look for now? Like if,
Oh, yeah.
have you ever like thought, hey, I am had enough of today. I really want to use and had to stop yourself or any close calls?
Yeah, I mean, so in the beginning, for like the first year, I was calling my sponsor all the time, just because I was crazy and I needed a lot of help. But, recently it shows up in the form of like wanting to isolate, not knowing how to process uncomfortable things, like some of the stuff I struggled with as a kid coming back to the surface and, learning tools to recognize like, hey, this is something that I'm just going to have to work through as I stay sober. Where before I had the tools, I would have retreated back to using. Right. So, to answer that, it's like I do have times where I think about drugs, but it's never like, oh, I want to go do it right now. It's like, oh yeah, this is just happening again and it'll
Yeah.
pass. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. No, it
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
So you never have even come close to giving in, nothing like that, not even drinking?
And I don't mean this in like an ego way at all, but I mean, no, the program has helped me stay away from that. I haven't wanted it. It's more like I just feel like I have different solutions or vices that I tend to go to, right? Whether it's, isolating and just watching TV, right? That's like my new drug,
Yeah.
as silly as it might sound,
It's kind of nice doing that though. Like I
Yeah.
appreciate that more these days than ever. Like just clicking on, I started watching show Landman recently and I just was
I
like
love that show.
watch a couple episodes of that and it's like just nice and really relaxing. I'm like, I like doing this sober. When I used to drink and I would forget half the things I watched when I was drinking.
Right.
It's kind of cool. So, and you just appreciate things a lot more. Like yesterday, I went to a movie with my mother, and it's like I would never done that if we were both drinking at the time, and she got sober too. So it's cool. It's you just start to appreciate the little things, like running errands. Like we weren't capable of doing that, like getting tasks done and like having
Yeah.
goals set and actually reaching them and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's pretty incredible being sober, I have to say. So, one last thing, what advice would you give to my listeners now that, are sober curious, new in recovery, been in recovery, that just want to stay strong? Like, what advice would you give from your personal experience as far as how to
Yeah.
stay sober and how to get sober and what to do?
Yeah, man. First things first, right? Like, and I'm no pro. I just did what other people told me to do. But first things first is recovery always comes first, right? So your program, whatever that looks like for you, not one size fits all, right? Just find somewhere, I would suggest a 12-step program. Make that first, and then, find ways to be healthy while you stay sober, right? Whether that's, being intentional about how many steps you're getting, prioritizing your health, and, try not to be one of those people that gets all these things back in your life, your family, the respect of your friends and peers, financial, good job, whatever, but your health declines, try to get your fitness and your spirituality to align. You
Yeah.
can do it if you're
Yeah.
intentional, just like you were about your recovery.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's
No.
that's what I would that's what I would say.
No, that's great advice. No, I appreciate it. Are there any quotes that you live by, like quotes that stick out in your mind that you live by that keep you motivated? I like to ask that
Yeah.
every now and again, but
I
you've
really
already
wish
said a couple good ones.
Yeah, the funny thing is I have a list on my phone of like stuff, like somebody will say something cool in a meeting and I'll
Yeah.
put a note in and I'll say who said it. Like I'll say what they said and then their name. But I don't have like this super cool like spiritual answer to give you, dude. I don't.
Can you repeat that quote that you said that guy told you
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. We get we get results we can't deny by methods that we can't explain.
I
And
like that. That's good.
it's a result of the steps.
I love that. And what you did mention vaguely that you do work with people in recovery. How do you do that?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm sure you've seen it on a lot of my posts, right? Most people in recovery on some level, whether they were, a heroin user to, just a heavy drinker or whatever, they've done some significant damage to their metabolism. So I try to have a unique approach to address that, right? So we're going to get them to start eating healthier foods that they like. And we're going to start getting them to, implement resistance training in a way that's not, black and white or extreme like we were with our addiction, so that we can start to change and shape your body without it kind of triggering addictive tendencies that you used to have, and using the foods that you like to eat to fix your metabolism.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So not only do you do that, but you also work with people as far as exercise, and you're a fitness coach
Yep.
as well.
Yep.
Awesome. So everything you're doing is healthy for the mindset and physical.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. But I always like to remind people that fitness isn't your recovery program, or at least it couldn't be for me. That couldn't keep me sober, right? It's something that complements a program that you're already doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, being sober 5 and almost going on to year 6 now. That's pretty incredible. So really happy about that, and really proud of you, because that is a long time. I mean, I just remember the first, like, I'm only, I guess I can't say only, but 15 months in, coming up next
Oh,
week.
dude,
So
that's awesome.
that'd be cool. So I can't wait till I get to 5 years. I'm just taking it a day at a time, of course, like we say. But
Yeah.
it's some days are tough. Some days are. How do you deal with your bad days these days? Like,
Junk
stick to the
food and
program.
TV. No, I'm just kidding.
Junk food and TV. Yeah, I love my ice cream ever since I quit drinking. So yeah.
Yeah. Maybe, cut this part out, but I love ice cream too, bro.
We all have our guilty pleasures. We still have to have some vices. I mean, as you can tell, I still vape. I need to quit this someday, but
Yeah.
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 But yeah, so no, I appreciate you being on. And what's a good way that people can find you on Instagram and all that? You want to shout out your page and all that?
Yeah. Just my IG handle is Harry's Fitness Coaching. Just shoot me a DM. I got lots of free, even, if you're like, hey, I'm not necessarily looking for coaching right now. That's cool. I got lots of free resources, whatever you're struggling with. A lot of people in recovery struggle with sugar addiction. I got plans for getting off sugar. A lot of people struggle with just having a broken metabolism in recovery. I got resources for helping with that. So just shoot me a DM, follow me. I'll follow you back, shoot you a message.
So when they say broken metabolism in recovery, is that like, just not losing weight as quickly as you want to or something, or what's that?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously there's like the damage from drugs and alcohol that were done, right? Whether you were a heavy drinker and it damaged your liver, or you were doing heroin and you went to the bathroom once a week, right? And obviously those things do get a little bit better when you stop using, but everybody is pretty much, unless you're, regularly working out, your metabolism is just really slow, right? So you're not burning a lot of calories. So, people will try to lose weight by starving themselves or by, doing these crazy diets or cleanses. Not that cleanses are bad, but my opinion is they're not the best for long-term weight loss. And so I really just try to teach you how to get your metabolism burning calories again, kind of like a fire, right? Think of it metaphorically like a fire. The fire has gone out. I'm going to give you the matches, the gasoline, the paper to light it, and then it's going to be roaring, and then we're going to keep throwing wood on it. Sorry,
Okay.
Weird picture.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay. Well, I like it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on, and appreciate all your honesty and giving us your background and where you're at now. And there you heard it. Everybody wants to reach him on Instagram. His name's Harrison. And yeah, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for having me. I also appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Rock Bottom with Ryan. No bullshit, just recovery.